Hello, everyone. Well, that was abrupt. I meant to be more gradual with that. So, my name is Laura, and this is Stuff I Find Interesting, and that's it. It's stuff I find interesting. It's random. It's not necessarily well put together, not necessarily well presented, but I like to share stuff. I get very excited about sharing stuff with people, new stuff. I don't know, I guess it's kind of my thing. I like teaching. I like exploring. I like learning. And this is kind of coalesced into this new sort of endeavor that I am doing. Um, I'm obviously not young. I live in New York. I work at a broom factory. Um, One of those things is not true, and we are going to get started. I am going to make myself small. And we're going to bang out this whole episode like at once. Like we're going to see like if we can just like do it all. I'm really trying to like cut down my time, I talk so much. Okay. Michigan. I have no idea. I saved some stuff about Michigan. I share this because maybe there's someone, who would appreciate this. And this is just a wrap up from last time. There are some pictures here of like some of the main cities before they became cities. So I know I get really into my town and what it looked like before it was like populated and stuff. So maybe someone will appreciate that. This is mining companies in Michigan. And the thing that I thought was interesting is look at this freaking thing right here. Oh, I'm not small enough. There we go. There's a dude there, and look at that. So this thing was declared a National Historic Mechanical Engineering Landmark. So we think about art, going to a museum and looking at works of art, but these engineering marvels are also art. I mean, it could raise a 10-ton load of ore at a speed of 36 miles per hour from an inclined depth of 9,260 feet. It produced 2,500 horsepower. As the kids say, an absolute unit. This is the one of the places you can visit. It's called Quincy, and you can go and you can experience the mine. There's some ruins. They have sort of like demonstration stuff. There's a museum. It looks like a lot of fun. More mine stuff and some trains. So I was thinking again about Turkey this morning and the haunting pictures that are coming out. And it's like you definitely want to feel and respond to that because you want to be an empathetic person, but at the same time, you don't want to be paralyzed with, just the horror of it. I don't know. It's strange. If you're empathetic, I'm sure you can relate. You never really know how much to let in and how much to let out. You know what I mean? And I know I'm going on like an existential rant, and I started off talking about Turkey, but like I said, it's all connected. I always talk about that. So we're going to do random 10 images. This gentleman is preserving the history of Turkey and asks people to send in pictures. And he puts them all together. So if we look at that, this is crazy. Just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. This is his Twitter page. Eskizir Arzivasanizi. I tried. I wanted to just share this with you so if you could poke through it. There's lots of beautiful pictures like this. And this shows, once again, as we've discussed, the culture lasagna, the various different stages of building, either up or down. This looks like a little bit of both. That's some kind of fort. Next picture, Hull Holderness. This is in the UK. And the best part about this picture is look at this woman. She's running. Like, is she running after that guy? I don't know. I like to make up stories like that. This is the septizodium. Other than being a very cool word to say, septizodium, you kind of say to yourself, well, what is that? What is a septizodium? This is a random thing I came across on Reddit. And it was sort of like a false front building. I'll show you some more pictures. But basically it was meant to look pretty, and it was meant to cover up other buildings so that when you came down this hill, you saw this giant edifice thing that was magnificent, and it made you think that there was some sort of huge palatial thing beyond it. And obviously, there were cool buildings beyond it, but not necessarily at the level of grandeur that the Septizodium was. So here in this Reddit thread, there is a lively conversation, as always, about the use of building materials, because this thing was knocked down, and it was the bricks were used for other things, which it was very common. And there are people that are a little upset about that it should have been preserved, right? And then it said, this is zero username. There's some outrage of people in this very thread. But really, what did they expect? That medieval Romans would just bake new bricks and cut new stones when they had all these ruins lying about and eroding away uselessly? Or that they would mothball and preserve Rome in all its imperial glory when the city was a ghost town compared to its heyday with no empire to support it? People recycle stuff, doubly so when things are tough. Hey, that rhymed. But it's like some folks here expect the average Roman peasant in 700 AD, or the Pope in 1588 AD for that matter, to have an understanding of and no bigger fish to fry than the informative value of moldering ruins to future archaeologists. Bam. Good stuff. Good stuff. So this is, let me close this out. This is what it would have looked like. So as you're coming down the hill, you would have seen this. There were these marble columns, and then you had the different gods. I think it was 7 gods. Then there were like these fountain things. You can see there's a little dude here representing how big it is. This is another representation. It was a huge decorative facade in nymphium. I guess that's what you call this sort of thing, that stood at the southeast corner of the Palatine Hill next to the Circus Maximus. Septimus Severus built the ostentatious monument in 203 AD to impress visitors arriving on the Appian Way. I did not know about the Septizodium until I read this. So this got me thinking, right? It got me thinking about all of the different buildings that have probably been taken apart to make other buildings. And I came across this article, The Ancient Buildings That Have Shape-Shifted Across Centuries. And if we look at this, wow, right? Look at that. Petrus Grillis found a set of stairs disappearing beneath some ramshackle wooden buildings behind the city's gigantic mosque, the Hagia Sophia. Following them down to 30 feet beneath the streets of Istanbul, he found a sunken palace and floated through its forest of 336 towering columns in a rowboat. The elaborate reservoir he discovered, today known as the Basilica Cistern, was then already 1,000 years old. But more surprising still was that it was a portal to an even older epoch of Istanbul, once known as Byzantium and later Constantinople. Istanbul, Constantinople. If you know, you know. But could you imagine, like, you don't know this thing is there, and you're like, oh, what's down these stairs? And you go down the stairs, and you're confronted with this. I mean, just, it gives me goosebumps to think about it, honestly. I get really, really excited about it. So you can read about different buildings that have been repurposed to create other things, and it talks about specific buildings, and then it kind of talks about it in a general way and historic landmarks, blah, blah, blah. It's a good read. I'm not a super huge fan of CNN. I'm not a super huge fan of any news for that matter. I think it's all biased, but that's a good article. Here we have just a picture. I don't know where I came across it. I don't know. Here it is. And at first I thought this was like a flying pizza, but I don't think that's a flying pizza. And then I was like, well, maybe it's a fishing net. Well, that makes no sense. Perhaps it's for photography, since they're posing in front of some sort of backdrop to like make the light, make the light go down and reflect upon them. I'm totally guessing. I have no idea. This is just a nice set of stairs. That's it. I really like this picture. There's like a little window tucked away under here. So there's like a little thing underneath. And then you've got these dudes. And then is that like a tunnel? I want to see if this site still exists. I hope this doesn't go bad. This could go very bad very quickly. Nope. It doesn't exist anymore. There used to be a site called Stair Porn, and it was just a different set of stairs every day. And it's not there anymore, so I'm a little sad. But I'm glad nothing went really terrible because I don't want to start this over again. This is a cool site, great art in ugly rooms, and it's Paul Kramer, I guess, is the guy who is sharing this. And he has a unique eye. I like the stuff that he posts. We've got Matisse, just some unusual stuff, not the usual. Oh, I just said usual 2 times in a row. That was dumb. You know what I mean. Here's a Rothko, which is very exciting. Why it's in a dilapidated room, I'm not sure. Maybe that's a picture of when, like, right after he painted it. But it looks too contemporary. I don't know when Rothko died, but when did Rothko die? When did Rothko die? 1970. Oh, he committed suicide. This is a cool site I found. This is the British Library, and I'm sharing it with you so that you could bug out over some of these pictures. We got fashion and costumes, bees, more bees, flowers, Valentine's Day. Maybe you find something cool you could like cut out and give to your honey or your friend or your sister or your mother, whatever. Maybe not that one, though. I'm not real sure why that's in the Valentine's Day portion, but or that one for that matter. Cool pictures, though, if you want to waste some time. Quick, where is this? This is Brooklyn, New York. There's some other pictures you can look at. There's some stuff you can read. But this is a hop, skip, and a jump away from here, and I can assure you it does not look like that right now. It's been built up just a little bit. I don't know if you know that, if you know that Brooklyn's been built up, but it has. So I found a cool site. This is the UNESCO site, and they're the ones that vote on making stuff historical monuments so that they can be protected. And you can see these are the different sessions. So like in session 5, the archaeological park and ruins of Quirigua became a UNESCO heritage site. If we go through to the most recent, we can see that we've got Arslan Tepe Mound. I've never heard of that. The Chanquilo Complex. Never heard of that. There's a lot of things that you've probably never heard of. So it's kind of cool to poke through and recognize that there's still a lot in the world to be found. There's still a lot in the world to learn. I think we've become jaded with social media. We feel like we kind of know everything and, we can find everything, and just information has become harder to find, but I don't know. I feel like we're maybe just saturated, but maybe with the wrong kind of information. I don't know, or too much. I'm not really sure. But I do know that it seems as though society is currently troubled, right? And maybe I'm wrong about that. I mean, that's from my perspective where I'm sitting. But Los Glaciares National Park. I mean, that's just incredible. Just incredible stuff. Look at that. So, UNESCO World. You can look at different places in the world. This is in local news, and I'm sharing this because it is so freaking bad. I cannot even... I thought this was a fake news story when I read this, but it's not. Aramark apologizes for insensitivity of school lunch served on first day of Black History Month. Do you want to hear what they served? Yeah, it's bad. Chicken and waffles with watermelon. I'm freaking speechless. I just can't even. Like, Who thought that was a wow? This is a wonderful thing from the Cornell University, and it talks about travel imagery before and after photography. So, travel imagery changed considerably. Initially, there were lithographs, engravings, etchings. They were drawn in a particular style to show an environment or an area or archaeology. And photographs, this is Iceland, I changed everything because suddenly you could take a picture of it. You didn't have to, draw it. There was no well, there's a little bit of artistic license with taking pictures, but not like with drawing. Here's another example. Typically in a lot of these pictures, the people are sort of flat and nondescript. They're not really super, detailed. It's just sort of meant to show you the overall the landscape. And also these guys would pump out like 50 of these. There would be like 50 different scenes. They would go into a book. They would go to the king or the state or whatever. So with pictures, I think there were some pictures. Here we have the pyramids. That's really cool, right? Anyway, you can read this. You can look at the pictures. The pictures are nice and zoomable. Look at that. And learn some stuff about photography and travel photography. It talks about Frith. I think probably Felice Beato is in there. This is my favorite picture of the whole thing. This beautiful, beautiful thing. Okay, has a rock that generates electricity been discovered in Africa? Drum roll. That was a terrible drum roll. The answer is no. So there are two videos going around on the internet. There's this one. Some guy's touching a rock to another rock and it's creating sparks. And then there's this one. And I'm going to turn off the sound. And the guy has a rock. He hands it to the other dude. And he puts a wire on it. And then another wire on it. And it makes the little bulb at the end light up. So this whole article, I'm going to save you the read. It says no. There is not a rock that has electricity. It said for a natural battery to exist, as the videos claim, the mineral would need to somehow have an anode and a cathode that can interact. And it goes into what makes a battery work if you're interested in that sort of thing. I read it. My brain started to fade out. So I learned that there are these beautiful old walls in Seville, Spain. And they were ordered to be built by Julius Caesar. I did not know that. I was looking up some Seville drawings to just to kind of see what was out there, and this page started to get kind of weird. Like what's up with that, right? That has nothing to do with Seville, Spain, right? We have Seville, Florida. I did not know there was a Seville in Florida. This is looks very beautiful. It's unfortunate that a lot of this information can only be found on sites where you can buy the art or buy the photograph. And it's no longer out there like it used to be. We're all going to go back to going to libraries. I'm calling it right now. So these are some more Seville, Spain pictures. Just some Arch of Septimus Severus. It's the same guy who built the Nymphaeum. And we're heading into conspiracy land. I have a conspiracy that I'm going to introduce, and then we're going to talk about sound. It's not really so much a conspiracy as it is maybe a metaphysical concept that not everybody would agree with. So here we have the lost cities of the ancient West. So there are maps, extensive maps going back a long time from missionaries, the Jesuits, traders, people that, were just sort of like wanderers. They made maps of cities, vast cities, detailed cities that no longer exist and are no longer found on any map. And it's like they were never even there. So where did they go? Did they not exist? Did they not? And it brings into question, well, where did they go? And this guy presents his sort of his theory and his postulations. It's a little hard to follow because he seems a little angry about it. Perhaps he's from the area. Perhaps he's Native American and feels as though his culture has been compromised, but he's not a happy guy. Here's a cool picture. This has been knocked down. This doesn't exist anymore. But yeah, we're going to be talking about this a little bit more. We're going to be talking about the cities that no longer exist. So the cities that no longer exist, this is from 1629, I think. And if we go in, we can see like the Gulf of Mexico, Florida. We've got all of this, Mexico, very well mapped out. And then we've got these cities over here in this area. Murata, Kiula. There's 7 cities that appear on maps that no longer appear. There is a far out there theory that, I don't know, I'm kind of leaning towards. That there was a water event, flooding, ancient ocean suddenly, I don't know, burst all of its coastline or something. Something happened and it ran through that area and took everything out. I don't know, it's kind of crazy, but I have lots of stuff that I'll be sharing about that because it's fascinating stuff. If nothing else, where did the cities go and why are we not talking about them? Where's the archaeology? How come we have archaeology of some ear bone from a cave in Romania, but here in the United States, we don't know about cities that existed, that were big, very big cities. I don't know, it's strange. Okay. This is some good stuff. This is exciting. So, story time. I went to a spiritual retreat once, and it was based on sound, and it was really interesting. Like, there were a couple things that happened. One of the things that happened is we had to be silent for like 6 hours, which was terrible for me, but strangely invigorating. And then we carried out these sound exercises. So there's this idea that different sounds that you make with your mouth can correspond to different energy centers in the body and relax them or loosen them up or make them flow properly, or there's a whole science behind it. And I say science because it kind of straddles the unknown and the known. So there's it's kind of discussed but not really discussed. Music therapy is a real thing. I have a friend that I went to high school with who is a music therapist. She started her own business. She works with children. She does amazing things with music. So I went to this retreat and I'm doing the and the and all these other different sounds. And I wasn't really super into it or anything. I was just kind of following along. I was actually thinking about lunch because they have these killer lunches that were just very good and fresh and well prepared, and you got a lot. And so I was thinking about lunch and I'm making these sounds. But can I tell you that night, 20 years ago or 19 years ago, whatever it was, I had the best sleep of my entire life. I still remember that night's sleep. It was even better than the first night of boot camp. I mean, it was just like my body just felt like it had landed. So, I don't know. We're going to talk about it, though. Okay, bells. Have you ever thought about bells? Probably not. I know I haven't until now. So here's a list of the heaviest bells that ever existed. And then there's the Great Bell of Damazetti, the largest bell to have existed in recorded history. Cast in 1484 by King Damazetti of Mon, the bell was located at the Shwedagon Pagoda in Rangoon, which is Burma, now Myanmar. So the Great Bell of Damazetti remained at the pagoda as the heaviest functioning bell in the world until 1602. what do you think happened then? This is cool. In 1484, King Damizetti's astrologer advised him to postpone the casting of the bell because it was an inauspicious time of the crocodile constellation. Please, crocodile constellation. It's in a bad spot. Don't make the bell. The king was like, "Meh." He made the bell anyway, and it had an unpleasant tone. But he kept it up anyway, because he had it cast, and it was more of a, people would see it and be like, oh, it's a really big bell. Anyway, kingdom got overthrown. It's being looted. There's this guy named Philip de Brito e Nicot. He was a Portuguese warlord and mercenary known as Naga Zinca to the Burmese. And he was like, ooh, I'm going to get that bell because I can sell it for so that people can make cannons and stuff with it because there were wars going on. So he removed the bell with the help of his men, rolled it down a hill to a raft, and then it was hauled by elephants down the river. And then it was lashed to de Brito's flagship because he was a warlord with big old flagship. So it got lashed in the back for the journey across the river to Syrium, not to be confused with Syria, to be melted down and made into cannon. The load proved too heavy, and the bell went to the bottom, taking de Brito's ship with it. So, and in 1613, de Brito was executed by impalement on a wooden stake. But getting back to the bell, many people have tried to find it without success. Professional deep-sea diver James Blunt has made 115 exploratory dives using sonar images of the objects in the area for guidance. The search is complicated by the presence of at least 3 shipwrecks in the area. The water is muddy and the visibility extremely poor. You can read more about it. But some wild stuff, right? It's a confluence of different rivers, so it's a little rough. So that's probably why it broke off and went down, and then so now currently the Tsar bell is the biggest bell in the world, and it is kept in the Kremlin in the same location as its royal companion, the Tsar cannon. The bell has never been rung, but recently the sound that it would have made has been reproduced using a computer simulation, and I believe I have that somewhere in this mess of links. So this cannon was made in a big pit. There were, obviously it was a huge project, and 24 people would have been needed just to move the hammer to bring it back so that it could strike. But it cooled too fast or cooled too slow or something caught fire and it cracked and a big piece of it fell off. You can see the big piece missing. The king's like, why can't you just glue it back on? And the guy who made the bell was like, you can't do that. And the reason why you can't do that is because bells are made a certain type of way. Here's some more pictures of the bell, some more pictures of the area. Kind of fun to look at. Here's the 24 guys that would have been needed to pull the bell back and forth. In other bells, the Tibetan Tashinga bell. So they're on a string, and there's various ways that you can make them come together to create a sound. And the sound is supposed to be healing. They were used in Tibet by Buddhists in rituals and ceremonies and sound healing practices. They're still being used. I've seen them at different kind of events. Along with singing bowls. That's where they have the bowl and you have the thing and you go, ooh. Acoustical properties of ancient Chinese musical bells. I'm not sure what happened with that title, but so this is crazy. These are Chinese bells, right? And you think, oh, well, they're just bells, like a bell, right? Well, they are designed in such a way that they create 2 tones, and they create 2 tones that come together to create this sort of mystical third tone. And you can see by the symmetrical and anti-symmetrical modes of the music bells, you can see that there is the way the metal is put together. It's not just like rolled together with a dangly thing in it. There's a very special way that it's made. And there's a lot of math involved. This goes into some of the metallurgy and the math. And I came across this and I was like, well, a bell is a bell, right? You have a ding, ding, ding. Apparently, a bell is not a bell. This breaks it down a little bit more about the strike notes, the music scales of the bells. I understand a little bit of it because I took flute, but this is where it starts to lose me. But it goes into it fairly in deep, in depth. Acoustical and vibrometry analysis of a large Balinese gamelan gong. So there's gongs also for sound, right? And a Balinese gamelan gong, gang wadon, produces a distinct acoustic beating called an ombak when struck. This phenomenon is explored using both acoustical and vibrometry measurements. These measurements have long revealed the beating has two sources. First, there are 4 closely spaced modes that, given their asymmetric vibration patterns, have been deliberately hammered into the response of the gong. Second, and more importantly, a nonlinear structural response of the gong causes the fundamental asymmetric mode to produce harmonics. The second harmonic of the fundamental mode interacts with the second asymmetrical mode with the relative amplitude such that a strong beating is produced. In short, if you have a gong and you have your mallet and you take it and you go and you stroke it, the gong will start to shake, and then there will be like a beating, and then there's like an extra tone. At least I think that's what they're saying. If someone understands it better, please feel free to correct me. As I keep saying many times, I'm not an expert. All this stuff is new to me as I'm just presenting it as I find it. I know a little about a lot of things. Due to experience and due to being, that kid that was just always walking around with 25 library books. I love to read. I love knowledge. So, history of bell ringing. This is about bell ringing and British culture. And so it talks about, 0 to 1000 AD, blah, 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 blah. So I'm reading and I'm just kind of like, yeah. I'm reading about the bells. But then I came across, where is it? The first true peal was believed to have been rung on May 2nd, 1715 at St. Peter Mancroft, Norwich. That's in 1715. So I had to go and I had to look at what that meant because I didn't know what that meant. And then in the next one, it says, we upon bells completed the whole peal of grandsire triples in 3 hours and 2 minutes to the great satisfaction of thousands, both in town and country. So if we go, what is a true peal? It's a special name given to a specific type of performance of change ringing which meets certain exacting conditions. So I had to Google that too. But what it means is the bell is rung in a very specific way to create certain tones and certain vibrations. It's not just someone whacking it around, right? It's a very specific kind of thing. The other part that cracked me up about, or that caught my attention about this article was that the bell ringers, the people that did the bells around the 1700s, like people started hanging out with them. And then so there would be like drinking and hanging out and like prostitutes in the belfry rather than like taking care of the bells. Why that happened, I don't know. But it says that the bell had the power to heal, to drive away evil and the devil, to calm storms, and to save people from plague, pests, and enemies, and blah, blah, blah. But there's very specific ways that the bells are rung, and there are certain patterns that get like memorized, and there's different changes, and it's actually a very, very complicated thing. I was pretty wowed about it. Now, this is the Scythians, and I just bring this up because they had a bell culture too. They had bells that went on horses. I have a whole thing about them and their bells. They were definitely tuned into something, some sort of. They knew stuff about sound, I think, that we did not. Non-linearity, chaos, and the sound of shallow gongs. This also breaks it down a little bit more. You can read about gongs and how they work. Influence of church bells on human health. Since ancient times, it was believed that the sound of bells has a beneficial effect on human health, has healing powers, alleviates disease. Look at it, the organs in a church. Those also are believed to have healing powers. You know, those big organs. And it believes that due to the specific distribution of power of the ringing sound wave along a unique spiral path, the cell structures of microorganisms come into resonance and are destroyed. Even hepatitis, typhus, influenza, cholera, and anthrax spores die under this influence. For example, it has been noticed that bell ringers never catch a cold. Obviously, this isn't true, but there might be a little bit of truth in it, right? It can create an atmosphere. It can have an impact on a man's state of mind. It relieves stress, blah, blah, blah. Russian scientist claims that the 12-octave sound symphony of bells that rang in the great monasteries of Zadonsky, Danilov, Sojetsky, at a distance of 7 kilometers, destroyed all the pathogenic microorganisms. The epidemics that were coming from the Middle East, the bells destroyed them. So, the magical inner space of a gong tone. The gong is known as an instrument of transformational power. It is a tool by which we are engulfed in total sound. And through our intuition, we are brought back to optimum health and balance. This guy's really into gonging. I found a lot of videos with him. So if you go to the links, you can find his name and you can look him up if you want, like if you're into gongs. How sound affects you. Gongs and sound therapy. Here's some more stuff. This is a little bit of an easier read. And gongs, much like the bells, it's a very complicated thing. You don't just whack them. And they're made a very specific way. There's an art form to it. In Japan, bronze bells, they had bells also that followed certain mathematical rules so that they produced certain sounds. There were different sizes for different events. They were different ones were rung in tandem, and it meant different things. I don't know what happened there. Drum circle. So I went to a drum circle once, and it was an interesting experience. It was a room of these hippies, and I'm a little hippie, but these were like hippies, like 70 hippies. And the floor was covered with like toys, kazoos, drums, didgeridoos, anything that you could percuss was on the floor. And you were supposed to grab the one that called to you, and you were supposed to start banging. And everybody banged at the same time. And the idea is that eventually a pattern would emerge. Well, I'm here to tell you a pattern did not emerge. It was such a cluster. So, binaural beats. So that particular tone is supposed to be good for the frequency of the brain that deals with focus, memory, and concentration. You can find binaural beats for a sinus infection, healing your heart, emotional distress. I have actually used binaural beats, and not necessarily because I believe in the binaural beats, but I think it causes your brain to focus on something other than, oh my God, what about this? Oh my God, what about that? And then this tomorrow and this today. It's sort of, it's a meditative practice. Here we have a gong guy. He's readying himself. This is a big deal. Do you hear the beating in the back? You can hear the beating, right? That they were talking about in that article. This is
this
another
gentleman
guy.
is Bear.
Here he goes. He's getting ready. Oh, he gets a different stick now. He waits for the perfect time. I think that's just the coolest thing. You can play a rock gong. There are rocks. Remember we were talking about musical rocks? This
My
guy
name's Liam Williamson.
shows
I've
how you
played
can
drums for
play
about
rock gongs. So a 1 and a 2 and a 3. Here we go. Almost. This is a TED Talk about how music affects you at a cellular level. I neither agree nor disagree. I just know that music does make me feel better. And before we talk about how we can produce nitrous oxide by humming, we're going to try some humming. So this is the humming sound. We're going to hum, and we're going to see if we feel better after we do it. So, okay. So let me turn this up, and we're going to hum. We're all going to hum together. I want you to really feel it in your chest. Did you feel anything? Boy, what a difference. 20 years ago, if I said that, it meant something totally different than what it means right now. That's fun, right? I think maybe I do feel a little lighter, right? So these people, they're a little corny, but they're on to something, I think.
Side that is generated through breathing. And this is enough to really take care of a lot of the, shall we say, nasty critters that lodge themselves in the nasal cavity.
Anyway, they hum together and they do some sound stuff. But they are saying that your body will produce nitric oxide when you hum. And I'm like, what the? I'm like, that's nonsense. But guess what? It's not nonsense. It's actually true. And that the paranasal sinuses are major producers of nitric oxide. We hypothesized that oscillating airflow produced by humming would enhance sinus ventilation and thereby increase nasal NO levels. 10 healthy subjects took part in the subject, blah, 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 and the humming. And then there's some other related articles that are academically sourced and approved. So it's not like, like a pseudoscience site. And here's another one that breath humming produces. And now, what does the nitric oxide do? It has an effect on the sinuses, like that guy said. I don't know that it necessarily kills the critters, but it does kind of like open things up. It causes the chest to vibrate, and it also stimulates the vagus nerve, which scientists are discovering is a very important nerve. And dysfunction of the vagus nerve can present itself in a lot of different ways. Depression, digestive issues, lots of different things. So I would encourage you definitely. Maybe I'll bring that up next time. We'll talk about the vagus nerve. So what do you think? Do you think do you feel better after the humming? You can go back to the links and you can hum some more if you want. There's probably going to be some recommendations on the sidebar. If you don't like that one, you could find another one. That's it. I think I tidied it up pretty good. I don't think these guys will mind me sharing their song. I found them during COVID, and I just love their music so much. I just think they're awesome. Here's their album. You can buy it. And these are just random dudes who have played together for a really long time, and during COVID, they made a couple songs that are very good, and I'm going to share this one while we close out.
So let's see, we'll go like this. Does that make sense?
That's some good stuff, right? If you want to hear the rest, you got to go to the site and show them some love. They don't know that I'm sharing it. I'm just like some rando who like found their music on Reddit and was like, "Oh, this is cool." And then listened to their other songs and thought they were cool too. So, this is episode 15. We did it all in one take. Next up, we are talking about mining, but alien mining. So, you have that to look forward to. I hope everyone has a wonderful day. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye.